Good afternoon. It's Thursday afternoon, June the 11th. I know it's been over a week since I've addressed you like this on a time other than a Sunday morning, but we are sending out a church-wide email that contains all the information you need to know about the upcoming outdoor worship service planned for June the 21st, and also a reprinting of the procedures that will be involved when we begin indoor worship on June the 28th. So I want to ask you, encourage you, please, to read the email that's coming out in its entirety, because I want you to be fully prepared and fully in possession of the information that we will need in order to be able to worship together, beginning in just a few weeks. This past Sunday at the Spanish service, we shared a sermon preached by Bishop Elizabeth Eaton. And as you may know, Bishop Eaton is the presiding bishop of the ELCA. We played her Trinity Sunday sermon with Spanish subtitles for the Latino worshipers who attend that service. And Bishop Eaton did a marvelous job of tying the day and the scriptures that had been assigned into current events, especially the recent tragedy involving George Floyd and a former Minneapolis police officer. And hearing her sermon made me wish that I had done a better job with the Trinity Sunday readings. So I wanted to be able to share with you some of her thoughts on those readings as they relate to the tragedy involving George Floyd. Bishop Eaton, of course, spoke of the passage in the creation story, our first reading on Sunday, in which God proclaims that God has created humankind in God's image. And of course, if you consider the amazing variety and diversity of humankind, that must mean that all ethnicities, all races, all cultures, all languages are part of God's creation and are part of the divine image. Indeed, God rejoices in that diversity and proclaims creation at the very end of the story as very good. So, bearing all of that in mind, we have to be concerned about fairness, equality, and justice for our brothers and sisters and our neighbors, and as Anglos, as whites, who are the predominant makeup of this congregation, that means that we must be concerned about our brothers and sisters of color in this congregation and throughout our community and throughout our world. We have an obligation to speak on behalf of fairness and justice, particularly when someone's life is taken unjustly in the manner in which George Floyd's was just a few weeks ago. And it also brings to mind another situation that has arisen in Georgia not that many months ago in February to a man named Ahmaud Arbery. This was a young African-American male, 25 years old, who was unarmed and only jogging through a neighborhood near where he lived. But he was tracked down by 3 white men and shot and killed in that neighborhood with a shotgun. These kinds of events have been far too commonplace in our society and in our culture. And yet, if we understand our scriptures, if we understand the story of creation, if we understand who God is as Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, this is not something that we can fail to be outraged by. Indeed, this is unjust, and we worship a God of justice. And therefore, we must, to the best of our ability, stand with our brothers and sisters of color. And by that I don't mean the demonstrations that have resulted in violence and destruction and looting in recent weeks, but simply by proclaiming the truth and by standing with our brothers and sisters of color. If you'll recall, in the sermon I did preach on the creation story for Trinity Sunday, I told all of you that creation, the creation of heaven and earth, was not so much a creation of matter and life out of nothing, but God takes what exists in the very beginning, according to the first chapter of Genesis, an earth that is without form and void and is covered by chaotic, raging waters. God takes that existence in the very beginning and brings order to that chaos. That is the stuff out of which the heavens and the earth are created. God is a God of order, seeks to bring order to chaos. And I think we would all have to agree that there has been a great deal of chaos in our world and in our society in the year 2020 thus far. Naturally, I'm talking about the coronavirus pandemic and about the George Floyd situation and the other situation I referenced. The good news and the word of hope that should come to us from these stories is that God seeks order out of chaos. And that means that our God, who is still creating, who is still busy bringing order and life into being, and new life and new beginning, is seeking to bring order to our situation. And indeed, I think as people of faith, we can be confident that God's order will prevail ultimately. And so we will see the gradual reduction of the coronavirus threat. And we hope and pray that we will see a society grow out of these tragedies that will seek justice and unity across all boundaries and barriers between people, across races, across nationalities, and that we will seek to be one humanity together in relationship to God. That is God's plan, and that is what it means to be created in God's image. God bless you this day, and please pay attention to all that is contained in this email. Thank you.